You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty.
There was no fight. Lampers wasn't telling us what bears we could shoot, what bears we couldn't shoot.
What you're saying is you didn't have any dead weight that you needed to
you guys are
content.
I mean, it's like herding cats with you two. I think it's a good team, man. I mean, you got the 56-year-old boat anchor in the back, and all of a sudden here she's running. She came right down to us 8 yards from me.
You're teaching them how to scout from their home.
That's right.
All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Call, and I got Brad Hunt here with me. Today's podcast is with Mark Livesay, which I recorded up at the Western Hunting Summit about a week or so ago. We talk about this year's bear season. We kind of recap the spring and how it went. Brad, I think your story's in this because you and Mark were together when you shot your honey bear.
Yep.
There's some good stuff in there. There's a little information about scouting, as Mark's the e-scouting king.
It's a genius.
That's what he was doing when he was up at the summit. He was teaching people how to do their e-scouting for elk and more. This podcast, we do talk about bear, and he gives some good tips on, spring bear and what to look for, snow line, things like that. That's very informative.
Kind of just some of the tips that you can use that most people have no idea about.
And if you haven't downloaded his e-scouting course, you need to. It's epic. It's awesome. It's incredible. It's a must-have. You will learn things on there that you didn't know you needed to know. They will completely change the dynamics of all your hunts moving forward. It's you learn it once and you carry it with you for life. It's worth every penny. Use the code GRITTY, and that helps us fund our show and keep doing what we're doing. And this event was recorded at the Western Hunting Summit, put on by Ryan and Hillary Lampers. They own Stealthy Nutrition, and they're a partner of Gritty, of course. And I'd recommend getting these. These are the Stealthy Nutrition CBD gummies for joint health and other things. I like the krill oil. If you haven't checked out Stealthy, here's the CBD gummies for sleep support. I've used these religiously to help me go to sleep each night. I usually take one before bed. There's a whole lineup of things that'll help you with your nutrition and your health and your wellness over at Stealthy Nutrition. And then, of course, over there, you can also get yourself a Stealthy Hunter rifle cover or Stealthy Hunter glassing pad before the season starts. Everyone should own those two things. They're awesome pieces of gear, and they make the backcountry that much better. And today only, you can get 20% off a sheep feet. They build these custom orthotics. They're amazing. They send you a mold. You do a custom imprint of your feet, ship it back to them, and then they create a custom orthotic that's special for you. People ask me all the time, are the sheep feet worth it? Because they're not a small ticket item. And my answer is yes, every time they're worth it. Go get yourself a pair. And right now, that big price tag that they have, it's 20% off, which means big savings. We did a promo with them just to the end of this month. So today's your last day. Enjoy the podcast and stay gritty. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am at the Western Hunting Summit on day one.
Day one.
It's pre-day one.
Pretty rare for you because it's usually day 2 or 3 before you bless us with your presence.
Hey, I'm pulled in a lot of directions, Mark. I have a lot of responsibilities.
Well, and you rolled in here with your tribe, and
I got my 3 daughters and my wife, and we're gonna have a good time. But the only reason I came early was so I could have some one-on-one time with you.
You're always trying to butter me up, Brian. I mean, you must be ready to ask me for something.
It's the honest to goodness truth. I wanted to get you on the podcast, and I wanted to catch up with you on bear season because
you stood me up most of the season.
Because I didn't get to hunt with you this year at all.
No,
so far,
not even one day.
But elk, we're going to make up for it with elk.
If you can keep up. Well.
So what happened was I was in Alaska, and you went on a hunt, and then Lampers and I and Pedro and Brady Miller went off and did a hunt, and then that hunt ran over because of Ryan Lampers.
While you guys were there, I was solo on another hunt.
Uh-huh.
And then we were supposed to hook up on the third hunt, and you guys just wouldn't come out, and we just kept in reaching. Oh, we're going to stay one more day. And then you got a little sick.
I got real sick.
So
then you guys
and we just
got a honey bear,
and then we killed the honey bear.
You and Brad, which is this awesome video.
Did the video? Do you believe that video footage?
It's unreal. So
Brad actually did a short little podcast about it a little bit. Didn't want to give away too much, but we're working on the films right now. But let's talk about bear season, and let's talk about how this season was different, especially weather-wise. Snow. The spring was bizarre.
Bizarro.
Lots of snow. It was long.
Rain, cold, ticks.
Yeah. So
all the fun stuff.
So, we're up here at the summit. You're presenting e-scouting information. And people who don't know, you own Treeline Pursuits, and you have an e-scouting course for elk that is phenomenal. And up here at the summit, you're teaching the folks that are attending, you're teaching them how to scout from their home.
That's right. Even if you live out west,
and not just that, you're teaching people how to use mapping software across all platforms.
I really say how to use the right tool for the right job. Not just, I tell people all the time, try not to be one-dimensional. Try to be multi-dimensional. I tell the analogy I use is if you're going to work on your car, you're not going to use a screwdriver for everything, right?
Right.
And when it comes to hunt planning and e-scouting and getting organized, and we got 10, 12, 15 days, guys. That's it.
Right.
You want to hit the ground. You want to get, and you want to make sure you're dialed. And
so I want to get into
a lot of time on that.
Yeah, I want to get into this year. How did you scout, and what's your recommendation? Like how did you do it? How would you have maybe done it differently? And what was your plan in the end? And then how did it actually turn out? I want you to walk me through it.
Okay, it was good. So Ryan and I started talking about these hunts really early. We were trying to figure out what day we were going to start. Mm-hmm. Because part of it was because we were working around Brian Call. Going to be in Alaska. Couldn't get started early.
Yes.
We're going to postpone a little bit later. But then we got to get done early. Then usually because we got the summits coming up. So we're in this pinch between April 15th-ish to ending May. We had to end by the end of May. We needed to be done.
Right.
And we had a crud ton of freaking bear tags.
Multiple states.
Multiple camera guys.
Hunters.
And the way we did it this year, we really, you'll see, I think when the films come out, we had the A team, which was my team. And then we had the B team, like Lamper's team.
Right.
They were running around the mountain. I don't know what they were doing. They were up in the snow line. They weren't seeing any bears. We were seeing a lot of bears. And so they were doing their thing. We were doing our thing, which was really cool because we're in reach and what they're seeing, what we're seeing. It wasn't like just all of us running around. And then there wasn't no fight. Lampers wasn't telling us what bears we could shoot, what bears we couldn't shoot. So we had complete freedom.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was nice that I could look at a bear and say, I'm going to shoot that bear.
Right, right.
Without Lampers saying, oh, no, that's one I'm not on the hit list. So I liked that style. It was fun. And we hooked up a few nights here and there. But anyway, to back up, we were talking a lot before the dates. And I'm like, Ryan, I need to start running snow analysis on these places because the elevation was at this. We knew the snow at that point early was between 4,000 or 5,000 feet. And some of the places we were looking at, we didn't know if it was going to work out. Now, the first place we were at, we had a good low elevation. And one of the reasons we went there is because we really thought that we may not have to climb quite as much as you have had to do in previous years.
Right.
Because the snow might keep them a little bit lower down toward the drainage. And that was exactly what happened. It was really funny. So we ran this complete snow package on this area. And there's a lot to that. We can maybe talk about that coming up. But what elevations, looking at live satellite footages, looking at historical satellite to see what historically where the snow line has been on this period of time. There's all kinds of ways to do this.
Okay, so back up a little bit. You're heading into the mountains for a bear hunt. You know what your start date is. And right now, when you guys were scouting on Google Earth and such, it's covered in snow. Right. Probably 5 feet, 6 feet of snow, maybe and so it's kind of the timing. If you start early, which I prefer an early bear hunt to later, if I'm going to
especially in this spot,
if I'm going to err on the side of being too early to bear hunt, I'd rather do that than be too late.
I totally agree.
So I prefer late April, early May over late May and June. Mm. So the problem that occurs in early May or early April, mid-April, let's say April 15th or so, April 20th.
That's danger zone.
Is you might be completely snowed out of the area you want to get to. Just snowed out. There's no way in. Or you could have clean trails if you come in on a low trail, below snow line, but all the bears are buried in snow and maybe aren't coming out of hibernation or a little slow, or they're not moving as much. So ideally, what are you looking for? What conditions do you want the day you leave from the trailhead?
Okay, so let's back up a
Bear
little bit
hunting.
on that. So like you just said, you made a key point. You said we're looking at this in, let's say we're looking at March to April 15th, right? So if you pull up live satellite images, that's not going to help you because everything's covered in snow in March.
Right. You
don't know what it's going to look like April 15th. But what a lot of people don't realize is there's so many amazing archives of aerial photos. So what I did in this area is I looked at April 20. We started the 22nd, I think, whatever.
Yeah.
I looked at April 22nd on 2019. I looked at 2020 and 2021. And what I did is I imported into Google Earth. I drew a line on the snow line for all 3 years in different colors.
And you teach people how to do this in the e-scouting class.
And I'm really going to teach it in the new bear course. It really, for elk, it works good for late season, but it is money for bears.
I think the snow thing is critical for bears.
Yeah, I drew this line, right? So I had a historical average, okay? So then I went and looked at the snow depth. That's another tool that you can do. I looked at the snow depth. It's an infrared image, satellite image. It tells you the depth, and it's remarkably accurate. It's not perfect, but it's good. So I looked at the depth, and what I noticed was the depth for the last 3 years have been really about the same.
Really?
Except for this year.
Okay.
When I pulled up March and compared it to March before, we were way deeper this year.
Yeah.
It was cold. We knew it already. It was cold. So we knew we were up. We knew the snow was going to be below the average, right?
Right.
So what we were looking for, what you asked for, is I wanted to make sure that where the river was, where the trail was, between there and where the snow was a big enough band that had time to turn green so that there was going to be an attraction for the bears to, one, come out of hibernation and be able to hang in that zone. If the snow comes down to 100 feet of the trail, like you just said, a lot of those bears are going to not come out of hibernation, or they're going to be in the snow, more difficult to deal with.
Hard to hunt,
hard to get around. So you
might postpone your hunt in that case, or hit a lower elevation area, which again,
that's right.
If you had to be out there on the 15th, those are your only days, then maybe what you do is you scout out this, but plan B is, okay, if we don't get the melt or the situation we want, then this is where we're going to hit.
Well,
instead.
And so like you just said, I mean, that's exactly what we did. We had 3 or 4 places we were going to hunt bears this year, right? This first place, we went there for a reason. It was the lowest elevation of all the 3.
Right.
And we knew that we needed to go there first because we were in, not only is it historically we needed to go there, but this year was really a good reason to go there. And we were excited once I did the snow research and we got closer to the date and I was able to start looking at live satellites. I was able to say, oh, Ryan, it's melting up. The south slope's looking good, up to about 2,000 feet above the river. So we had this 2,000-foot band to work in. It was perfect. We didn't have to go to the top. All the bears were concentrated in that band.
Right.
And right when we got there, that's right where they were. Those bears that we saw, almost every single one of them, and we saw dozens, they were in that 750 to 1,000 foot below the snow line.
Yep.
The critical part about that, and you're like, why do you pick that? Well, a lot depends on the steepness and how quick the snow's melting and whatever. But in general, I find that that's about the amount of time it takes to get green. If you get too close elevation to the snow, it's still brown. You know, it's still that mucky stuff. But once the sun's on it and it's like, so it's not a perfect science, but it is, it has proven itself over and over again.
Of what.
If you like to hunt bears in steep country, which we do, that 750 to 1,000 is holding true almost everywhere. That's the band that's the band the boars like to be in.
Yep.
We are seeing sows and cubs a lot of times right on the snow line.
Right.
And people can get kind of
because they see sow and cubs there.
Hypnotized into, they keep looking at the snow line.
They keep looking at that elevation.
But do you agree with, you've seen a lot of boars a little below the sows.
Yeah.
And maybe the sows are up there for a reason to stay away from the boars.
Yeah. And it can go both ways. You can see a sow really low too. Yeah. Not very often though. I mean, those sows like to stay high in the cliffs.
Even to the point where you're wondering what they're eating. The boars are on these green ledges just eating up all the chartreuse grass, and those boars, those sows, they're just on the rocks. I'm like, what are they eating up there?
Dude, the pictures that Ryan showed me, you had giant bears.
We had
that
big
you
bears.
saw giant bears. Like, I don't know how many XLs, extra larges, but
we kind of did the number. We think we glassed up over 100 different bears this year.
yeah.
Now, that's probably between the group. We've kind of come over that number. Now, maybe a little short, maybe a little long, but it's pretty dang close to that. There wasn't a day gone by, I don't think, that as a group we probably saw 10 or 15 bears, at least.
That was for us too.
Now, not shooter bears, some of them, but we saw some XLs.
But what Ryan was telling me about your trip, we were contrasting it to the trip we were on together. And one thing that was very different was you guys saw a lot of XLs and a lot of boars. We saw more sows and cubs than we've ever seen, ever.
Although I saw the video at the Mule Deer Summit last week. I saw your bear, the debut of dude. I told Hunter was with me, and we got this meatball. We named him Meatball. That thing was a freaking beast. Even I told him he was a shooter that morning. I was so mad when I said that because I still had my second tag.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have never let him. I wanted to shoot that bear, but it was his turn. It was a giant. But when I saw yours in the video, I'm like, well, we're going to have to take second. Second's not bad. Second's like kissing your sister, but it's okay. We'll take second place. That was a big bear.
Yeah. It was this season was different though in sheer numbers of bears that we saw. Now, it was an odd, long, nasty weather. Spring. We didn't get that much sun, so you were talking about that range greening up. It gives it enough time. But you guys didn't get a lot of sun either.
Not while we were hunting.
Right.
But it was warm enough that the grass was really growing well. 1,000 feet down, though.
Yeah.
It was critical that we stayed about that 1,000 feet down. We did a lot of cross.
Other options, other areas in the state, though, had you gone there instead at that point, you couldn't have gone.
The other three spots, I'd already looked.
Yeah.
So I researched a new spot for us to consider in future years. So I went solo, and I couldn't go when I wanted. I had to try a different spot for a few days, and then I was there for 10 days. So I spent 5 days in one spot. Then I repacked into another spot, and I was able to get in there, and it was green enough. Yeah. But I didn't turn up a ton of bears. It needed to be a little greener.
See, I did a hunt 2 years back with Suzanne, bear hunt, and we got after it. But the three places I wanted to go to were too snowed in. But that's where you need to be for those bears. And the places that I went to, they were low. Like I needed to be there a month earlier.
Yeah. Well, Bryce from Peaks Equipment, right? The spot he likes to hunt. It's actually my spot. He's kind of moved into it. He calls it his, but he's wrong. He couldn't even go. He couldn't even go there. Even to the end of the season, it was not accessible. Even on May 30th, June 15th, couldn't get in there. I don't think you can get in there right now, today.
Yeah.
It's almost July, and you can't get in there.
So you came up with multiple options of where to go.
Right.
Settled on the one that was the most promising based on the data. Then you marched in there. You saw more bears than ever. You did get rained on a lot
every day
and held up quite a bit. But both you and Ryan took bears.
Nice bears, yeah. I killed my first blonde bear.
That bear's gorgeous.
Yeah, and he was a medium, probably medium large. But man, when I saw that color, I'm like, I'm killing that bear.
Oh yeah.
I've got all the color phases. So this is what's weird. I've never seen a blonde bear, and I've been hunting bears like a dozen years. Never seen a blonde. Pure blonde.
Right.
So we see the blonde, I kill it. Now we come to this ranch where we're at here for the summit. There's blondes everywhere.
I know.
I've seen blondes every time we turn around. I'm like, big ones too. And but it was a special bear, and we called it Butterball. And it was a fun one, but it was brutal. Oh man, it's one of those ones that bear was 400 yards away, and it took us 11 hours to get to it.
Yeah,
that was sick.
Yeah. Well, when you got to cross rivers and go off cliffs,
climb down, climb back up. And we had to go to camp, get the rafts, which was about 2 miles. Had come back, go down, come up, and so 11 hours it took us to get the bear, and but it was cool.
So, what would you have done different, or what did you do right that you were happy with? this season?
Well, I think that, I know I keep harping on this, guys, but you can't kill bears that aren't there, right? And bears are not as thick, and they don't have the populations of mule deer and elk. And so you got to be precise in not only the type of country that you're looking in, but you've looked at the statistics and you see the harvest rates of bears in those areas. So you know there's a sustainable population of bears, number one. Number two, and you got to hunt the right zones at the right time of year. And so I know I sound like a broken record with this snow analysis, but when it comes to bear hunting, like you just said, you went to a spot that was really low and you should have been there, a week before, a month before, whatever. I hear that all the time. I get there and there's just no snow around. There's no bears around because those bears are following the green, man, right? They're marching up that mountain. They like green, right? But they don't you correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got grass here now that's knee deep,
right?
Thigh deep, right?
Right.
They don't like that grass. They'll eat it. They prefer that brand new green shoots, the tubers, the flowers, the forbs, the grass. And so now to a certain point, once the rut starts, who knows what's going to happen?
It's like the snow melts 3 feet at snow line,
right up.
And then in that couple of days, a bunch of glacier lilies pop up.
Oh man,
a bunch of like tubers and onions, and it's all of a sudden, in that little, it's mostly mud, it seems, with just green shoots, sporadic. There's not like a layer of grass. There's not a carpet of grass. It's just super green shoots.
Glassing, it doesn't even look green sometimes.
No, it doesn't look like it's worth hunting.
Well,
if
remember
you're
last
not
year
familiar
when
with
you
it.
and I were up, you and me and Ryan, that bowl we were in was kind of brown.
Yeah, for sure.
But these glacier lilies were like candy. They were just anywhere we found concentrations of those lilies, we were almost see a bear there at some point.
Yeah.
And that's the case with that. You same with the grass.
And it's funny, like they were popping like right at the edge of snow, and as that snow melted by the day, 2-3 days in, you'd have a fresh crop of those coming up, and those bears are right there within 300 feet of the snow line, 100 feet, mostly right at snow line, walking through the snow.
Well, and I think a lot of things is people don't, I don't think they realize that bears, how much they really like that rocky, shelfy, ugly terrain. They're like, oh, I don't know about bear. We saw bears on shelves that we were scratching our head trying to figure out, how did they get there?
Us too. I have
like,
so
right?
much.
It's like, did they have a rope climb?
This footage I have this year is just bears and cliffs.
Yeah.
We ran into a mountain goat at 20 yards from us coming around a corner in some cliffs, and we filmed this goat, and it goes up over the hill. Coming around the mountain another like half a mile, we're in this basin, and Pedro and I, we've got this beautiful chocolate on this hill. We're following and filming it and stuff, and then this mountain goat, boop, pops into the cliffs next to the bear, and they're staring at each other, and they're both in the same frame. I mean, literally, this bear is where the goats live. And we saw that the whole time.
Yeah, same for us. And so I think guys that are listening to this, pay attention that those big rolly green that look all greeny green. I mean, not that you can't kill a bear there. But they seem to, for me, all the years is this, that in the spring, we're talking, let's say till March 15th, okay? They tend to want to be in those areas. Now, March 15th, once these sows start slowly coming in, anything, who knows what
March
they're free.
15th? Or?
I'm sorry, May 15th. By the end of May, things are getting different. They're getting way different, and different areas are going to maybe start a little later. Some start a little sooner. But when that rut, and once they got their digestive systems going and they start finding a few, especially once the calves start dropping, things change, quite a bit.
Quickly. And it's not just that. They seem to want to cruise a lot more. They seem to want meat, killing fawns, eating fawns, calves.
That's my favorite time to call. I mean, I love calling bears in the early season, but it's certainly not as productive for me as it is once we get more mid to late May. I really ramp up my calling if I'm going to call.
It's not just the bear's behavior changes either. Depending on where you're at, most areas, the brush becomes head high, 6 feet tall.
And the leaves come out.
Right. So it's the same thing in Alaska for grizz and stuff. in 10 days or 7 days time, you can go from spotting game to not seeing anything anymore unless it's in the open. You will not. There's too much brush. It's too thick. The bush is taken over. And when that happens, like especially the low country, like where you guys started this year, those hunts are over by May 1st.
Yeah.
They're too thick.
Yeah.
Any bears in there, good luck seeing them. It's like hunting a jungle. At that point, it's kind of, you want to be there right as it's turning green. It's been green just a touch. They're coming out of their dens. They're milling around, but you have high levels of visibility without vegetation in your way.
So guys are thinking, well, how do I know that that's the case? By following the snow. Mm-hmm. If you look at the snow line and you look at the historical, look at it on April 1st. Let's look at it on April 1st, see where it is. Look at it historically. Look at it where it is on April 7th. Look where it is on April 15th. Look where it is on April 30th. Look and see where it's at. Get 1,000 feet below. It's not going to be budded out yet. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be leafy there yet. It's not going to be, the green is just going to be turning green. It's just going to start turning in that chartreuse. So, but there's all these tools that you can use. There's multiple tools: the snow depth, the live satellites, the snow melt infrared scans. There's so many things you can link together to paint a picture. Especially guys that are you got to pick 7 days to bear hunt. You got to pick where to go. So we didn't talk about this yet, but you said one of the first tools I start with is once I know about what the elevation of the snow is, right? Mm-hmm. Go hunt. Everybody knows we're working with Go Hunt, but one of the tools they have is so freaking awesome is this terrain tool, and you can turn on all these different elevations.
Yeah.
So I was able to say, I want to see everything below 4,000. Well, I said, I want to see everything below 5,000 feet. That's it. I want it orange. I want to see it in orange. So what you're able to do when
what do you mean in orange?
Well, that's the shade that it gives you when you click 5,000 and below. Maybe it turns everything that's in that range.
Paint it all orange.
It gives whatever. It gives it a color. Mm-hmm. So what you can do, think about this. You zoom out, okay, and you look to see what drainages have these yellow or orange streaks. Well, not only do you care about do they have that elevation, what's more important is how much do they have? Mm. How wide is that orange? How far up the side of the drainage does the orange reach? Mm. If just the river is orange, you're like, oh, well, the river's at 5,000 feet. Probably not going to be very green, right? Mm-hmm. But what I want to see is the wide orange spots. So in this particular spot, I was able to zoom out in this whole area. Hope this doesn't give away too much. Zoom out the area, and I say, whoa, look how wide a band this drainage is. That's the money drainage. In that whole area, this one drainage had the widest band of below 5,000 feet. And that was the honeypot.
And that's what because based on this season, the snow staying so long that you needed really a low elevation hunt. Because we often hunt at 6,500, 8,000.
Well, last year we were at almost 7,000 feet. We couldn't have been in there.
Right. And so when you know that you're having a long winter season bleeding into the spring, that's pretty cool. You can just go into Go Hunt and you can just say, I want to see everything that's this elevation and lower. Or
higher, whatever your case may be.
It. Okay.
If you're mule deer hunting, you're convinced that everything that you want to hunt's above 8,000,
right?
Turn on 8,000 and over.
Right.
It'll show you the range. How much of the tops are at that elevation?
Then you can start targeting.
Well, like this year, we've got a really high moisture content in Montana right now. Probably the highest we've had. Everybody's been seeing what's happening in Yellowstone, right?
Yeah.
Well, my prediction is in Montana, it's going to be probably one of our better elk hunting years ever.
Right.
Because of the horn growth. One.
Yeah, last year was abysmal.
It was abysmal. Number two, those elk are going to be freaking high. Because that snow is still there. Mm-hmm. By the time August comes, and that's going to be the greenest, freshest, new shoot.
Most delicious.
The elk are going to be piled at tree line this year, which last year they were not.
Right.
They were more mid-mountain where the moisture was a little better.
Yeah.
Because guys, they have a misunderstanding. Even in Colorado, people think, oh, elk are high, elk are high. Elk are only high if the vegetation is good. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people see elk high because, but you've got to go where the food is. And this year, unless something changes, it could be a phenomenal year of high. So that elevation band, for me, I'm going to start switching gears, and I'll be looking for 9,000 and over in Montana, right?
Yeah.
See what kind of ridge tops, what kind of ridge lines do I got that have these wide 9,000 foot spans? And then I'll start zeroing in on them. Just kind of reverse what we just talked about with bears.
Right.
I'll start kind of reversing for some of my elk spots. Because I think in some of my elk spots that I've been looking at, I think the elk are going to be higher than normal this year. Because I think the moisture is going to be good. But we don't know. We'll see.
We'll find out. I mean,
but those are tools we can use to break it down either way.
Of the areas that you, because you went back in later with Brad, and the two of you
higher elevation because it was later
stud
on.
bear. So tell me that analysis, what went into that, and how it turned out.
Okay, so that spot
it was much later in the season.
This was May 20th ish.
Yeah, and
about a month later. We've been hunting we've been hunting almost. I hunted 37 days for bears this year, probably my record. So this was our third hunt, and met up with Brad. It's supposed to be Brian, but Brian was MIA. Lampers was MIA. They wouldn't come out. So we said, okay, we're going to try this new spot. So we had this spot that it wasn't far enough for Lampers. It wasn't 17 miles. So we thought, let's hit this when Lampers isn't making any decisions. And it was like 4 miles, 5 miles.
Yeah.
So we go in there, but again, we're at 6,000, 7,000 feet. This was sketch. I had to probably study the snow here more than the first hunt because we were right at the line. And we get there and that snow's right where we thought it was. The road, I looked at 2 or 3 north bends on the road to see if the snow was across the road because you know how those snow drifts on the north. Sure enough, it looked like in the aerial photos that they only went halfway across the road. And when we got there, they were halfway across the road. We drove right through them with the trailer, everything. So how would that much would that, you know how long that road is? You've been back there.
Oh, yeah.
50 some miles of gravel, right? How much would that have sucked to drive 50 miles to be snow drifted out?
We were, and we've had to turn around and go back a whole nother.
Well, not anymore.
A whole nother
now
way.
We're studying the snow on a level that, I've never studied before.
The other thing is, just four-wheeling through it with chains on and trying to get through it. So, because we knew, or we hoped, that was the one spot.
The last one?
Yeah.
You always think it's the last one, right? So anyway, we get to the spot and the snow's where we think it is, so we feel good about it. We go in this spot and it's money. I mean, this spot is so beautiful for bears. One of the most beautiful bear spots I probably have ever been in. And we can't turn up a bear. We stayed in there for 3 days and we glassed and glassed and glassed. And we kept seeing grizzly after grizzly after grizzly. We had 2 in camp. We had to shoot at a grizzly. We had a grizzly try to get a llama, pulled the stake out. We had another bear in camp one morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a grizzly fest over there. We saw 9 grizzlies in 3 days.
Yeah.
9 different grizzlies. Unique grizzlies.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We glassed the same mama cubs almost every day. We knew the ridge. They kept coming out of the same hole.
Dude.
So I think they were driven all the black bears out.
Yeah.
So we decided that we needed to go back deeper at a higher elevation. And we decided to hit this side drainage that we knew we could get in with the snow. So we get all the way back in this side drainage, and it turned out to be not green enough back there. We kind of made a little, I thought we were pushing the limit anyway on the elevation, but it was just brown. It wasn't that green, but we saw a lot of bear sign on the trail going in. We were back about 4 miles, and on the way out, we started hitting that green band again on the way out, and that's when we saw the honey bear. And we put our eyes on him, and then the game was on.
Yeah.
So we were able to get that bear. So that was a brutal bear. We killed that bear. The bear was in a great spot. It was not that hard. But we had hiked in that morning. It was about 8 miles in. We had done about 5 miles down this trail. So we killed the bear. We had to go back to where we thought we were going to camp. The grizzlies have been stomping the trail. We had blood on us. We had this dead bear. We couldn't get off the trail. We're like, man, this is going to be a freaking rodeo tonight. We decided to hike out. So we did like 17, 18 miles that day. It was a tough day, one day. Brad and I were I don't know. I'm not speaking for Brad. I was pretty tired, but we got the bear out and we just made the call that it was not going to be safe for us to stay right. Guys, camping right on a trail, that grizzly bingo, that's danger, right? Yeah. Because grizzlies like to use trails. They really like trails. So when you're camping in grizzly country, I try to get a little off the trail, but this spot too. It's hard to get away from that trail. It's steep. Yep. It's just what you got. And with all the, I mean, there was grizzly scat everywhere. And all these stomp marks, where they've been leaving those same pad marks. So it was a habitual trail.
This whole thing about there's only like so many
1,200 grizzly crap. Dude, we saw, anyway, I don't even get into it.
Yeah.
So, we ended up there was a great bear. So we had, we killed the bear just when we had one more bear to go. So we got it and it worked out. And, so that was a really good hunt. And, that bear was a special bear too. Big bear.
Huge bear.
Great footage. It's going to be a great film. Great film.
So that season, the bear season in general, you're working on bear course.
Well, we're working on bear course.
Correct.
Unless you're trying to weasel out of it.
No, I'm not. In fact, I've gone through so much footage, categorized it, put descriptions in place, and anything where I have gathered bear information, or even just from behavior to what they eat, sign, all that stuff. Over the years, we've captured quite a bit of film, so I've been categorizing that, and then we're going to be working on putting a big comprehensive scouting bear hunting course.
I don't know what we're going to name this one. I've been calling it Next Level Bear. I don't know, but the great thing about this is, guys, I mean, I like to stay in my lane, right? I'd like to stay in my lane. I like to think I'm a pretty good bear hunter, but you and Ryan are you guys are light years ahead of me in the bear world. So I feel like I'm a greenhorn in the bear world when I'm next to you two, but I do know a few things about snow levels and e-scouting and that kind of stuff. So I feel like
combining
this
together.
That.
Yeah.
But with you guys' expertise so this is going to be end to end. We're going to do tactics. We're going to do strategies. We'll be spot and stalk skill sets. We'll be calling. We'll be doing skinning. We'll be doing butchering. We'll do meat handling.
Yep.
Fat rendering. We're going to do it all, and comprehensive bear finding, terrain, e-scouting, all of it. So I'm excited about it. The problem with this one is it's a big project. The e-scouting elk one was kind of all me, right? So it's kind of easy. Not easy, but that course was 30 hours.
What you're saying is you didn't have any dead weight that you needed to
you guys are
content.
I mean, it's like herding cats with you two. So you always want to do this hunting thing always seems to get in the way. And so we had all these ideas to film all this stuff in the field. Well, as soon as we see the first bear, that's out the window. We ain't got time for interviews.
Yeah.
And we saw so many bears. We're on stock. We're chasing bears the whole time practically. So anyway, we got a lot of work to do, but I'm excited about it. It's going to be there's not going to be nothing like it. And I think people will be, when they get a chance to see it or experience it, I think it'll be game changing as far as bear hunting goes. There's not many resources out there for bear hunting.
Not end to end like that.
No, there's a few things here and there, but elk hunting, there's a couple things, there's a few courses out there, Elk 101, and you got the Elk Collective, and you got my course, and you got some other that you can piece together. But bears, there's not really an end-to-end resource.
No, I don't think so. I think Bear Magazine and some of the stuff that there's shows here and there that have come out, but I would argue that the podcast that Ryan and I have put together, along with the films that we've put together over the years, have probably informed people more than just about anything else.
You guys have made bear hunting sexy. You guys are kind of ruining bear hunting. But
what I think is going to be neat is to be able to take, sometimes you get in there and it's become so second nature. It's hard for me to think about. I take for granted what I know.
That's right. We talk about that a lot. And same with e-scouting. It took me a while. When I first started doing this course, I'll be honest with you, Brian, when I started doing some YouTube videos, right? And I thought, I don't know. People already probably do all this stuff.
Right.
All these Googlers, KMLs, these shape files, all this stuff I do in Googler. Everybody knows that. Why am I...
Yep.
I found nobody knows that.
Right.
And the snow stuff, nobody knows about it. And
you get here, and I'm at the Western Hunting Summit, and someone says, and starts answering some questions, or asking some questions in a Q&A, and that goes on for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And the questions that are asked, I wouldn't have thought to address, or have to think about it. Like, that's a good question. I do XYZ, but I don't. Why do I do it? And I then have to think back. And
so to do a course, what I had to learn, and same with this bear course, we're going to all have to learn. we have to really reverse engineer how we got to where we're at. You know, Ryan's been hunting bears for who knows how long. You've been hunting bears for a long time. And to think back about, okay, when you look up on that ridge and you're deciding that that's good bear country, why are you deciding that that's good bear country? It's not because there's a couple rocks up there. It's not because there's a whole bunch of things in your mind subliminally over your years of experience. You're like, that's the place to go, right? Ryan can walk out there and say, we're going right up there, right?
Right. But he
doesn't know why he's doing it. Well, he kind of does, but now we have to articulate it.
Right.
We have to put it in a way.
It.
We have to transmit that or translate that in a way that people can. So what my idea is that I'm going to interview you and Ryan and kind of ask this whole series of questions, right, to get you guys to think about it. And then my idea, this is just an idea. This may not be the way it comes out. We're kind of flying blind here. And then I'm going to go to the computer and say, okay, Brian was talking about this, this, and this. This is what that looks like. So instead of the other way around with the elk course, my idea is do interviews on how you guys kind of analyze terrain and look for certain features and whatever, and then show them digitally what that looks like. That's kind of my idea right now.
Well, that's one thing that's neat about the project is that what you bring to the table married to what we bring to the table will paint a bigger picture than.
I think it's a good team, man. I mean, you got the 56-year-old boat anchor in the back. And,
you're holding your own.
Yeah, well, got to get a knee fixed now, Brian. I hunted so many days, got my knee flared up on these hunts. I got to get that fixed.
Yeah, mine are. I've been stiff lately. I got sick on my season after I shot that bear, and we hunted 10 or 11 days. I got Pedro to the airport so he could get back to Spain, and then Brady had to go back to work. You know, and so Ryan is the only one that didn't get a bear, didn't tag out on this group of 4. And he's like,
I'm not coming out.
This cut's deep. You know, I don't really want to come out. I mean, I don't want to go home without filling this tag. So I'm like, all right, I'll come back and let's do this. You know, I thought we were just on the cusp, right? You're on the edge. You just one day, give me one, like just the odds factor, you know. But like we said earlier, the longer the season goes, it's like a bell curve. It goes up and then it comes back down. And on the front of the bell curve, there's not very many bears out because they're tucked away and they're still hibernating, but a few are there. But then as the season progresses, you know, and you get into late April, early May, it's like the peak number of bears are available to hunt, and they're in the easiest positions to kill. They're the most likely that you can tag out. And then here you start going to the end of May, and that bell curve drops off, and all of a sudden the hunt quality of your hunt dramatically decreases, and you get into June, and it's just like brutal.
So, you know, we'll go back to that. I want to make sure that people listening kind of understand that, because here's one of those cases where you know that, right? But you don't know what goes into that. So what we're talking about, guys, here is in the bell curve is like, as the population of bears start to increase, there's a lot of bears coming out of hibernation up to the top of the bell, right? But they're occupying less country.
Right, they're condensed.
They're on south slopes almost exclusively at that time, right?
And they're lethargic a little bit.
They're lethargic, and they're very limited geographically.
Yeah, because they want to go to where the salad is.
We got to be below the snow, like we just talked about, and the north slopes and the east slopes and the west slopes could have a lot of snow.
And there's not been enough sun for anything to be inside the timberline.
So you're better able to pinpoint areas if you do the work we've been talking about.
They're in the open.
They're in the open and they're isolated. Not isolated, but
condensed.
But so then when you get to the top of the bell curve, right? You got lots of bears, but now the snow's melting. Now things are greening up. So like we're out here at the summit, we're seeing bears everywhere. I mean, everywhere, right?
Right.
But they're on north slopes, south slopes, east slopes. Everything's green.
And we're in an area where there is a particularly high density of bears.
But they're running. Every bear we're seeing is chasing us out. They're here 1 minute, they're gone the next. So it makes them hard to kill.
Right. So when I say the bell curve, you know, comes up and then comes down, you hit the spot in your season where the bear hunting is sparse at first. Then it picks up, gets better, just like the elk rut. gets better and better and better. And then there's animals everywhere. They're exposing themselves. It's like the hunt is great. Everything's perfect. You got this killer time. And then it starts to die off, just kind of like the elk rut. They stop talking as much. They stop being available. You start not seeing very many. And then as it comes down to the end of the bell curve, now you're hunting 4 or 5 days to get a glimpse of one bear, and he's motoring across the field to go find a sow on the other side. It's just like, it starts to become so difficult. It's just like hunting elk and following the rut, you know. At the beginning, you don't see much, and then all of a sudden they're just going nuts and they're wild, and then that curve drops off and they disappear into the woods, and you hardly see them, and they never make noise. And
well, the last summit, here's a good example. So last summit we were going up, and I was working the water stop. And we're sitting there waiting for shooters to come down, and I see this blonde bear coming across the ridge, 200 or 300, 400 yards, well, probably 400 yards up on the ridge, along this face. I didn't know at the time it was a she, but this bear by herself, by him, so whatever. I got my binoculars. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I looked a little bit, I could see that. Then I knew it was a sow. There's a big old chocolate boar right about 100 yards behind her.
Right.
Following her, right?
Yep.
They're motoring. So we just happened to have Go Hunt was here with their camera guy, Ryan. So Ryan was with me. We ran up the road, and we tried to cut him off to get some video, and they kind of were ahead of us. I said, Ryan, I'm going to call her. I'm going to make some calls. So maybe we can get her to get one of them to come. So I got on an elk call, elk distress, maybe 20 seconds.
yeah.
We're looking. She kind of disappeared. All of a sudden, here she's running. She's running right to us. She came right down to us and got up on this little rock 8 yards from me, looking all around, looking around. And she starts, we're standing in white T-shirts in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
She starts to go back. I made another call. She turns across the road right in front of us, 8 yards, goes up on the bank, can totally see us, and I'm calling at her. And then she just kind of gives us the nose up and starts flipping rocks. She didn't even care. She came right to us and then didn't even care about us. Now, the boar was a little big. He stayed up there. He said, I'm not falling for that trick. But that was so cool. And we got it on film.
You're like, she didn't maul you. I mean, that's just one of these times. You can't keep playing with fire like that.
I love it, calling bears. It was so cool. And we called her right. So
she's going to get up there and slap the crap out of you next time.
So she's getting trailed. Think about that.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But she stops to
the
come.
rut, man, they're weird during that period.
And
I hunted them in British Columbia during the rut, and I got on this bear, and he was just with this sow, just following her around, and he just strutted, and she just walked and ate, and he just was like, he just looked mad, and he just would walk around her, and he had this stiff-legged thing he'd do, and I had a bow and arrow, and I was spotting the stock, and I get up on this bear, and I got to admit, it was pretty intense. I closed to like 35 yards on this thing, and I come into full draw, but I don't get the angle I want on the shot. The sow's right behind him. I don't want to pass through. They're so soft, you know. And then the bear kind of starts walking away. He looks right at me. He doesn't care. He does not care. So I start following him, and I just get up and start walking after him. And he like turns and looks at me like, you really want this? You really want this? And I just keep sneaking, and I freeze, and after a minute, he turns and he follows the sow. Sow has no clue I'm there. And I sneak up behind him, and he stops and turns and looks at me like, really? And I freeze. And I just keep doing this for like 200 yards across this big logging cut. And I'm getting close. I keep drawing my bow. It's just a little out of range, and he keeps walking because they don't hold still much.
Yeah.
And so this sow has no idea, right? Well, the wind's about to switch. We're about to blow right to them, right? But this boar knows he knows I'm there. He's known the whole time. He's massive, huge, does not care. You know, I'm trying to sneak up on him. He does not care. He's like he's threatening me every now and then. You know, he kind of looks and he. You know, but it's like he thinks I'm another bear or something. Like he's not, you know. So that sow, she gets my wind, and she freaks out, runs up on this little knob, and she looks back at me, and she's just huffing at me and pushing her legs down. Well, this gets the boar all mad too, and so he follows her, and he's up there, and he's just like huffing at whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, he's just huffing to huff, you know. She's like, look, he's right there. He's right there. And the boar's like, yeah, just huffing. And then she turns, and she's kind of like, I don't like this. I don't like this. And now she's moving fast, and the boar's moving. So I'm kind of jogging too. I'm just chasing him at this point. And they go below this rise. So now it's like my turn. Like, I'm just going to sprint. I sprint all the way there. I get to probably 40 yards of the bear, and come over the hill, and the sow is just crossing a creek, a deep creek. And the boar turns around, he comes back, and he like, and he like pops his legs up and down, up and down, up and down. Super cool. And I got my bow at full draw, and I got it pointed at his chest, but I wanted some kind of broadside shot. I'm shaking like a leaf, you know. And then he just turns around and follows her, and never got that bear. But the guide I was with, because I was up there with Jeff Lander from Primitive, we went out on another trip, and a bear was walking across the road. This is like a day or two later. He stops, gets out. This is pretty late into June. I mean, they're rutting hard. And he just starts hoofing from the road and stomping his legs on the ground like he's a bear. This bear comes charging out of the trees. It was probably 30 or 40 yards in the tree line. The truck just turned off, you know, and he's pretending to be a bear, and this thing just comes flying out, stops at 5 feet on the edge, and just like, and it's blowing, and they're blowing at each other right there. And he's like, I'm supposed to get a bow out and shoot it, you know. I'm like, this is a little too much for me.
See, I love that stuff.
I mean, it's cool, but it's a different experience hunting during that time. It's nothing like early April.
A lot of bears, we'll see a bear one day, early, early season, and we know we got a good chance to get back on that bear the next day. We don't get excited. Like, if we don't have time to make a move, we're okay with that.
Yeah.
We don't rush it. We don't take long shots. We don't take risky shots. We want middle side shots. We wait for them. We try to get as close as we can. But in freaking June, you're trying to cut them off more than you're spot stalking them.
Well, even this hunt with Ryan, Pedro, and Brady, I go back in for day 11 to 16, day 11 through 16. So we were there almost another full week, just shy. And the hunt, like I said, we were seeing so many bears and some giant boars, like 3 giant boars right there. It was like, we're going to bump into them any second now. A couple days later, I'm back in there with Ryan. Brady leaves. Pedro's gone. It's just me and Ryan now. We're right there where he saw bears a couple days before. No bears. No big bears. The boars we couldn't find them here. And you're telling yourself, look, there's going to be a bear tomorrow or within the next hour. There has to be. Yeah. After all the ones we've seen up to this moment, it's got to be. But the truth is that bell curve is dropping off. And every day we don't see one, it's not getting more likely anymore that you will. It's becoming less likely.
If you're on the downslope.
If you're on the downslope, which is about where we were at. Yeah. And
it's a good analogy. We got to put the bell curve in the course because it's a good analogy.
I mean, you can make do with all the season that's available.
Guys, but you have go bear hunting when you can go bear hunting.
Yeah,
don't.
But there are going to be peak ideal moments for your style, too.
That's right.
Like if you're a caller, you don't want to be there this
April 15th.
late. Yeah, you don't want to be there. If you're into calling them, if you're into stalking them, if you're into killing boars that are on the move in a saddle, then it's probably during the rut when they're traveling a lot. Like it really depends on.
And to be honest, if you want to hunt them in easier country.
Yeah, true.
A lot of times they get into easier, more manageable country later season, I've noticed. Like around this where we're at here. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's steep slopes here, but they're definitely manageable.
Yeah.
We've been talking. It's definitely conducive here to spot and stalk bear hunting right here.
Yeah.
But where we hunted, you can't hardly hunt with a bow where we go. By the time you cross over, you couldn't turn up the bears.
In fact, that's another issue. Are you wanting to bow hunt a bear or are you wanting to rifle hunt a bear?
Yeah.
And, Pedro asked, can we do it with a bow? And Ryan and I talked about it for a little bit because it was kind of last minute getting Pedro. I'm like, come to America and just hunt bears with us. We join us. Brady will be there. We'll just make the 4 of us. It was last minute. So he's like, And we do it with a bow. And Ryan and I have been kicking around a spring bear hunt with bows for quite a long time. We both killed a number of bears, quite a few bears with bows. But since we started hunting together, we've never done a bow hunt for bears in the last 4.5 years. Part of it is because the terrain, like you just said, the terrain is not conducive to an archery situation. It's not that it can't be done.
Right.
But we're not going to kill 2 bears each or 3 bears each per season.
Well, and the commitment
and
to get to the bear. It's a whole day to get there. And if he's going to hold still and the whole bit.
And then, honestly, the bear meat and the bear fat
I was going to say, we love bear meat.
Is so big for us. It's such an important part of why I bear hunt that I don't like the idea of only getting 1 bear instead of 3, 2, or 3 because I chose to take a more primitive weapon that makes it that much more difficult. I'm okay with that on certain species. Like, I'm okay with maybe not getting an elk. I'm not okay with not getting multiple bears.
I always tell my wife, I hunt a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Elk hunting, she always says, hey, when you think you're going to wrap up, she never says anything about hurry up and kill, nothing like that. But bear, she just says straight up, don't come back until you kill it. Just stay until you kill bear, period. Right. Oh, my family loves bear meat more than any meat we have. And she really, I feel the pressure from her on the bears. And she loves mule deer too, but elk, she's good with it. And but man, when it comes to bears, it's a stay out till you get it done.
I'm telling you, you take your bear meat and you can it and you do a half and half bear, half elk.
I haven't done that.
It almost doesn't decrease the bear flavor at all, but it greatly enhances the flavor of the elk. And the deer.
I may try that.
And you can't really tell in the jar which is which.
See, that's another thing we're going to put in the course, like canning and the whole thing. We'll have that in there because Ryan does that too.
Yeah, it's good. And so, but I would say, bear hunting with the bows, primarily where I did that was in British Columbia, where it's rolling farmlands on the edge of wilderness areas, and the bears are out in these big meadows, or they're real conducive. They're logging cuts to just sneaking around and shooting with bows.
Good archery, yeah.
And there's usually 2 or 3 stalks per day that you may or may not capitalize on. Lots of opportunities, lots of good terrain. That's a whole. And then Prince of Wales Island. You're cruising around on the shoreline in a skiff, or you're on a logging road or something, or in a tree stand, and those critters, those bears, they're just really conducive to bow hunting. Stone Glacier came out with a video just, a month ago or so of Southeast Alaska guys bow hunting bears. And it brought back a lot of memories because I've done it a lot. And here's one thing, and if you've watched that, you could see bow hunting bears, stalking a bear isn't hard.
Yeah, it's not hard.
At the end of the day, it's probably one of the easiest animals to sneak up on and kill.
Yeah.
So I'm not super impressed when somebody sneaks up on a bear. It's like they're kind of not paying attention. They're not super alert. They're blind with their little beady black eyes.
And sometimes they don't even care you're there.
Yeah, sometimes they're just bizarre. They're just like, oh, yeah, whatever. And they just do their thing. Now, their nose is the one thing you got to pay attention to.
They don't work on that.
And their ears. I mean, they will hear something. They'll pick up their head. They won't like it. They won't look in your direction. They'll hear it, and they don't question their ears that much, and they'll just kind of drift into the woods. Then you wait 2 or 3 hours, and they'll often come right back out and start eating again. They don't go far. They just leave because they heard something, make sure it's safe, and then they come back out. But bow hunting bears, you need terrain.
Yeah.
You need terrain.
The right terrain.
And a lot of the wild places we go to, we've had situations where we could have done it with a bow fairly simply, but that's like 1 out of 5 bears we kill. Yeah. So we are looking for next spring.
We're working on it now. So
for a couple of areas where we can just
let our hair down and go after it.
And so for e-scouting, to me, if you're going to scout to archery hunt bears in the springtime, you've got to do sort of what we just said in terms of snow melt, timing, when you're going to hit it, your routes, your backup, your primary hunt, your backup hunt, your third backup hunt, all those sorts of things. You got to know all of that, your routes in, so forth. But then you also have to analyze the country for how well it lends itself to bow hunting.
Well, how quickly you can move around.
Right.
And also, I'll say one more thing. So we're looking at some spots for art, for Brian and I have been talking about it. One of the things that I like to do, I killed a pretty nice bear last year in Idaho, in eastern Idaho.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, western Idaho. And I was on an elk hunt, and I was in camp. My llama started going nutso in the middle of the day, middle of the freaking day. They're barking their heads off. I look up, and here's this big old freaking chocolate bear standing up there looking at my llamas. I'm like, I got a bear tag. I'm gonna go up there and kill that thing. So I just, while he was so enamored with my llamas, I snuck around, got up on him, got the wind right, and he kind of lost interest. The llama started coming, and I just kind of cut him out. He walked right. I shot him at 10 yards, and it was great, But like you said, it was an easy train for me to get to him, right? And I wasn't planning to hunt bears. I was hunting elk. He just showed up, and then it turned into a bear hunt. No problem. But what I like to do, well, I've killed a few bears with a bow too, but I like to glass bears from one side to the other, but I don't want to lose sight of those bears. When it comes time to go get those bears, I like terrain for archery where you can keep that bear in your sight the whole way.
Yeah.
Because they're very shifty about disappearing, right?
Right. And they wander.
So I think like this ranch we're at here is a perfect example because it's got the terrain that's rolling. You could keep your eyes on that bear most of the way in, right? You would agree.
Yeah.
But a lot of places we're crossing deep crevices with brushy willows you're losing track of those bears.
Right.
So you got to do a couple things if you got to be able to be really good with your tech to drop waypoints on where that bear is and really analyze your contours and really know, because once you get over there, it's not going to look like it. Like we've said this a million times. Once you cross over and you get over, everything's like, whoa, everything looks way different than it did. You mentioned this spot. You guys have done it a couple times. You've tried to cross that canyon with a rifle and get over there, and you've been surprised. You get over there like, whoa, we can't, right?
Yep.
So you have to make sure you're analyzing. If you're going to take a bow, you need to know what you're up against from a terrain-wise, how steep it is. Are you going to lose track of those animals when you make cross-canyon moves? All those factors, I think, need to be looked at and analyzed a little bit before you jump in. Because, bear harvest rates are like 5%, guys. You guys make it look easy, right? We march into the wilderness and come out with 6 bears. That doesn't happen for most dudes, right? It just doesn't happen, right? It just doesn't. And it's a blessing, really.
Yeah.
And so we've been lucky. We've been really lucky. But guys, we put in the work. We study. You've heard the snow now.
Yeah.
We study it. We go to places with high concentration of bears. We pack in for bears like we're packing in for elk.
Right.
Right? Not many people do that. We were 10 miles in on the first hunt. I was 7 miles in on the second hunt. On the third hunt, I told you the last day, we did 17, 18 miles that day. So we're not road hunting. We're not driving the roads glassing bears up. Not that you can't. But those more wilderness wild bears are a little more, you can deal with them a little bit better because they're just not as humanized as the ones that are getting shot at from the road every year.
Right.
And at least in my opinion. So, you got to keep all that in mind. But I'm looking forward to maybe finding a place that we can do an archery spot and stock. But, But again, man, we love our bear meat, so we'll probably have a rifle or two in the back.
Yeah, we've talked about that too. Like, you bring your bow and then you bring your rifle, which we've done. We've done both where we've packed both weapons at the same time. When you're this remote, though, it's a challenge to bring both.
It is.
But a lot of guys will say, well, you'll just bring out the rifle, so why bring the bow if you're going to bring them both?
I don't know.
But I don't think that's true. I've done it before where I'm really happy to go after a bow opportunity when it presents itself. But if I got a bear, 400 yards above me on a cliff face, I know I can get him with a rifle, but there's no way I'm getting up there or getting in that position in time, with a bow. I'll take that shot.
Yep. It's good.
Bear meat's too precious.
Oh man.
So, I would like to, I'd like to talk some more but about elk hunting, because we got that season coming up here soon. It's that time of year. And I have a mule deer hunt, high country mule deer hunt as well. So I say we do another podcast here and we talk about, I just pick your brain for my personal
mule deer hunt. Well,
yeah.
I've looked at the place you're going quite a bit, so I'm not a mule deer expert yet. I'm getting there. I'm getting better at it, and I'm going to start doing. I got a lot of mule deer points.
Yeah,
that I need to start burning.
We need to go over that and elk too, because we have some plans for elk season, and I want to talk a little bit about that as guys are getting ready for their season.
Well, it's like course. I'm getting so many questions right now. Everybody's getting ramped up. Everybody's drawing their tags. Mm-hmm. You know, I tell guys all the time, don't wait till you get your tag in hand, man. Be doing some work, be doing some groundwork. It doesn't go to waste.
Right.
You've got all that historical knowledge you're just banking. So, cause you're going to get the tag eventually. Mm-hmm. Any work you do this year that you're not able to utilize, it's money in the bank. Yep. Everybody's, I'm not going to do anything until I get the tag. Man, sometimes I just don't think that's the right approach. And, I think you're looking at it the wrong way. And I think, you need to think about, this is a busy time of year, at least for the elk course, because guys are scrambling now because they've drawn tags. Right. And it seems like drawing a tag these days is like freaking, it's not as easy as it used to be.
I'm 1 year out of practice. Last year I got COVID and hospitalized in September, first days, and didn't get to hunt. So it's a strange year. I didn't hunt at all. You know, it's 2 years back now since
You've forgotten how to elk hunt, probably.
I don't think that's the issue, but I'm kind of I'm really eager to
I'm kind of nervous about it because you
excited.
might be going to one of my spots.
Well, I will, and I'll kill the biggest bull there.
Well, I'm nervous because now I'm like, man, this spot better have some freaking big bulls in it. I mean, it's like, man, he'll be on me day one. Well, I ain't seen a big bull yet, Livesay.
Your e-scouting sucks.
I'm like, dude, what's the deal? And so
that's going to be good.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, folks, check out Livesay. What's your Instagram?
Treeline_pursuits.
Treeline_pursuits. Go follow him there. And then go check out the e-scouting course. There's always, in all the videos that I produce, podcast or film on my YouTube channel, in the description field, there's always a link to Mark's courses.
With your discount code.
And you do get a discount. If you use that code GRITTY, you get a big discount. Yeah. And it's well worth every penny.
Well, and for you elk guys out there, even the guys that are taking the course, I'm working on a new module to add to the elk right now.
Sweet.
I'm getting ready to do a webinar, so I can't say the date just yet on this podcast, but I want to do a pre-hunt webinar, like a pre-season webinar for elk. I'm getting ready to do it. It'll be open to everyone, not just members. The last one I did was exclusive to Treeline members, but this one I'm going to do for the general public to kind of tell them a little bit about the course, but also to help them kind of get a little bit ready for the season, kind of give them some nuggets that maybe they can use. So I'm in the works of planning that, so that'll be coming really soon.
Cool. All right, folks. That's it. Appreciate you tuning in. Stay gritty.